Hey everybody, Boast here, and today I'm going to be doing something that's been asked of me for quite a while now, and I finally just got around to doing it. I wanted to wait until the end of the patch, the final patch, to start redoing all of my tier lists. So today we're gonna start with a new tier list. Today this is going to be the Civilization 6 Leader / Civ tier list. It's been a long time coming. I've written one down, but I've never published it before. People know my general feelings on most of the civs, but I've never put it down on paper. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I took a lot of inspiration from, I'll go ahead and link it in here and leave it in the description. Peppermint Butler has a spreadsheet where he ranks all of the civs based on weight of a couple different things, where it comes to like early game strength versus late game strength, versatility, how dependent they are on some specific things, how they synergize all of their abilities together. I'll link that here in the description. You can go and preview it if you would like. It is also in his Discord as well. And you can also catch him streaming too. He's a very good Civilization 6 streamer, so everyone go follow PB. But with that being said, I took a lot of inspiration from that and made my own tier list off of it, and I'm going to be presenting it here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's just jump right into the tier list. All right, and I'm going to go through alphabetically through the civs and not the leaders, so that way it just makes it a little bit easier, I guess. But the first one, we're going to jump right in. It's going to be Teddy with America. It's going to be Bull Moose Teddy. And with that, Teddy is going straight into A tier. I had a lot of reasonings why I thought, I actually initially had him in S tier thinking about it, but the reason being he's in A tier. I mean, Bull Moose Teddy is very strong, right? His early game strength is insane. Getting the extra science and culture, getting extra science and culture on like 2 to 3 tiles literally just sets you up for the rest of the game. He's so strong. He's insanely strong. Not even with culture, but if you do science with him, if you do basically anything with him, you're gonna be set up for the rest of the game based off of just having even one tile. Having 2 extra culture means you're gonna get your first couple civics out really fast, like within the first 15 turns or so, which leads you to put in policy card, just means you get your government sooner, and just you start to snowball really hard after that. I think a lot of people really underestimate how strong early culture is. I value early culture more than I value science, and the reason being your early culture snowballs you more than your early science does. So even in domination games, your early culture is insane. So Teddy's going up there. The only problem is that the reason why he's not S tier is his dependency, what he depends on, and that he depends on breathtaking tiles. And if you don't have woods nearby, if you don't have a wonder, or if you don't have mountains nearby, and you low roll into like a plain start, then he just basically turns into Rough Rider Teddy minus the Rough Rider aspect of it. So with that, Bull Moose Teddy is an A tier. I think it's a pretty solid area for him to be in. Really strong, not broken, but he is a little bit dependent on some things. All right, and that brings us to the second Teddy here, which would be Rough Rider Teddy. And Rough Rider Teddy is the polar opposite of Bull Moose Teddy, and he's getting straight down into D tier. It really just comes down to the aspects of Bull Moose Teddy that you can get that Bull Rough Rider does not get, right? I mean, I know you get like the extra combat strength for being on your home continent, but that's just not enough. Like I know you also get the envoys too, but I mean, with on top of that, the extra combat strength just doesn't do enough for me for Bull Moose Teddy. The P-51 Mustangs aren't that, for Rough Rider, P-51 Mustangs aren't that great. By the time you're getting biplanes, you don't even really care about biplanes, you just want bombers, or planes instead of general. The +5 combat strength, it's nice when you're on your home continent, but if you're playing domination, then especially, which is kind of what Rough Rider is geared towards, is more domination focused than anything else. You aren't going to be fighting on your home continent that much, right? So I feel like with Rough Rider Teddy, he's okay. Like the Rough Riders themselves can be decent since it is an upgrade from a Curious Heir, but I mean, aside from that, there just really isn't a lot going for Rough Rider Teddy. So yeah, I think D tier is pretty good for him. Okay, well, with Saladin with Arabia, is it Saladin or Saladin? I really don't know. Can someone correct me in the comments? I would like to know. But with Saladin of Arabia, we have another D tier Civ. He's just, I just don't know what it is about Arabia. their versatility is like okay, right? You can do faith stuff, you can do science stuff. You get a little bit of culture once you get the madrasa. I'm sorry, once you get your worship buildings. The madrasa is okay. It's not like absolutely bad. +5 science. It is boosted by rationalism, which is nice, and it provides you faith equal to the science adjacency. It's just, I don't know. For some reasons, Arabia just always feels super weak, even when you are doing like science, even if you are doing faith. You know, getting the guaranteed religion is nice, which is why you know, some of his versatility is up there, and in the way that his strength of focus and like synergy is there. But I feel like everything else just doesn't really line up very well with Arabia. I feel like if you're trying to do science stuff, you know, other civs do it better. If you're trying to do religion stuff, other civs do it better. So that just brings him down to D tier for me. He's not like god awful to the point of like unplayable, but he's just, I don't know. I was expecting some buffs with him in the patch, but not seeing any. He still falls down straight into D tier. John Curtin, Australia. John Curtin here, he is fairly decent. I really like Australia. I really like the way that they play. And so we're gonna put him into B tier. I think this is a very strong, solid B tier here. There's nothing like, I feel like when people say B tier, when they look at B tier, they think it's like, oh, he's just not great. I think B tier is just really solid, right? Like A tier is great, S tier is a step above everybody else, C tier is average, you know, obviously. I think B tier is just good, like a good civ. And I think John Curtin, Australia exemplifies that perfectly, right? They have a really, really good late game strength. I feel like they synergize really well with all of their abilities. You know, the extra production when you declare war on them, all of the yields that you get from their unique tile improvement next to pastures. Everything works really well with him, especially since he has the start bias with coasts. You know, he gets his bonus from coast from his unique ability. I feel like John Curtin is just a really solid civ. You can do most things with him. You can do science with them really easily. Domination is very good for him, especially defensive domination. Being able to pop out units like that is really nice. You can do culture with them if you wanted to. I think his faith side is a little bit weaker. I think that's what it is. I think faith is generally weaker for most civs that have a production focus. But I mean, if you throw work ethic in there, then you're fine. But I think B is a really good spot for John Curtin. I don't think he's insanely broken. I don't think he's insanely good. I think he's good. I think he's really good. So I think putting him in a B tier is very acceptable for me. Montezuma. The Aztecs here with Monty. Honestly, I was expecting to place Monty a lot lower than I did, but I also have him up in B tier as well. I think Monty is another example of being a decent civilization. His early game strength is he's really strong early game. You have obviously his Eagle Warriors and the chance to steal builders, which means there are times where you don't even really have to build builders. I mean, you will, but you have the chance to steal them. I would highly suggest watching Potato McWhiskey's Eagle Warrior Rush video, where he played with vampires and Eagle Warriors, and he would take cities and chop out more Eagle Warriors with builders that he stole. It was a fun game. I tried doing it and it was really hard to do. So kudos for Potato for doing that one. But with Monty, I think he's just like another decent civ, right? The fact that he gets extra amenities from luxury resources, that is crazy. Adding Colosseum on top of that makes him insanely strong, and this, especially with the switch or the change to amenities a couple patches ago, brings him up a little bit higher. I would say if we were still playing on the patch before, where amenities really did not matter, then Aztec would probably be closer to a C tier. But with the fact that amenities matter now more, puts him up into a B tier, where you can basically do anything you want. Well, most of the things you want with him. You can do science really easily with him because your production is going to be really high with amenities. You could do culture with him. His unique building is nice in the entertainment complex district. So yeah, I think Monty is another solid civ right in B tier. All right, and after Monty, we have Hammurabi of Babylon, another B tier civ. I actually had Hammurabi lower for a while, but with the new addition, especially to like Men at Arms, and the added changes to the boosts and Eurekas, I think it was like 2 patches ago, where some of the scientific ones instead of that where you had to only boost them by spies now can actually be boosted with Eureka are added in. I think that bumps Hammurabi a little bit higher. His early game strength is really strong, right? His unique unit that has extra movement is really strong. The fact that you can get some techs really fast, right? You can do man-at-arms rush with engineering. You can do musketman rush. You can do biplane. You can do these really fast rushes, which allows, even though you'll only have 20 science, you'll be the tech leader. But that is where his downfall is that once you get to the late game, it is really hard for, well, it's still possible, but it is a lot harder than other civs, say as Korea or as Germany, to be ahead in the science game because people are going to catch up to you. So I think putting him in the B tier is really nice. His synergy on his abilities, all of his abilities and units, getting that first building in a district that you get the first time you get that district is really strong. His downfall, like I said, for his for late game science is also his dependencies. He is very dependent on being able to boost things, right? If you don't have a quarry, you can't boost masonry, which means you have to hard build masonry. If you don't have iron, you can't build an iron mine for swordsmen. If you're not on a river, you can't get a water mill to boost. Like different things like that are, if you're unable to boost things, then his timings fall off really hard. So that's why he's in B tier. If he wasn't as dependent on being able to get Eurekas and civics or getting Eureka for his boosts, then he would probably be up in A tier, but that's where he falls and straight into B tier. All right, so for our boy Pedro here, Pedro, initially he was a little bit higher, but I actually bumped him down a touch here. He is falling into the C tier. I think this is going to be a little controversial for some people. I don't know. There's something about Pedro that is just he lacks a lot of early game strength, and super late game. He can carry you with his culture, but I feel like with his lack of early game and the fact that you are very reliant on super reliant on rainforest and things along those lines to even get your culture going. If you don't have rainforest, you can kind of he's not like super weak, but he's whatever. I feel like that's why I rank Pedro down in C tier. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of people who think he's A tier. I kind of disagree with that because outside of culture, he really doesn't have a lot going for him. He doesn't have anything that gives him boosts to science. Nothing that really gives him boosts to faith, unless you get like a Sacred Path. Even then, it's kind of. I feel like he's a one-trick pony when it just comes to getting culture and amenities. So I feel like C ranking is pretty good for him. Initially, like I said, it was a little bit higher, but after playing him a little bit offline and doing a little bit more digging into him and actually like understanding how you play him, even with like preserves added, I still feel he's not amazing. So I think C tier is applicable. Oh, Byzantium. It's really funny because I just ended up finishing. Well, the Byzantium game has been on my. I've been done with it for a while, but I just uploaded it to my channel here. But with Byzantium, I actually have him down in C tier. This might strike people a little funny why I rank him so hard in C tier when I'm like, Byzantium busted, faith domination is busted, and that's the thing. That's actually the reason why. Is if you can get a religion, which he is set up to get a religion, his domination and his faith is insane. It's really hard to counter him. But that's it. If you don't get a religion, which on deity, even if you're set up to get one like Byzantium is, you still have a hard time getting a religion going. There are still chances of you not getting a religion, and if you don't get a religion as Basil, there's no point in playing him. There's absolutely no point in playing him. Your hippodromes, sure, you'll get, they're cheaper, you can get tagmas with them or whatever, but if you don't have a religion, then there's no point in playing him. He just turns into a vanilla civ, and so that's one of the main reasons why he's down here in C tier, is because of how dependent he is on getting a religion. Which means that his early game is kind of garbage. His late game, if you get the religion, is insane, right? But because of that, he's not really versatile. He's super dependent on getting a religion. He's super dependent on using that religion to win his to even use his entire kit. So I think C tier is pretty good for him because when you do get him going, he's unstoppable. But the majority of the time, you won't be able to. Well, not that you won't be able to get him going, but you're not going to be able to get him going as unstoppable as you could every single time, if that makes sense. So C tier for Mr. Basil II. Oh, Canada. You know, I actually brought Canada up a little bit. Wilfred here was down in the D tier, and I actually brought him up to C tier with the new patch. If you're unaware what the new patch has given Canada, Mounties are now cheaper to produce. They're only 290 production on standard speed compared to 400, I believe it was before. Additionally, Mounties can also give you 2 national parks instead of just 1. So with that being said, your culture in your national park game is going to be insane, right? Because you can build 5 Mounties and get 10 national parks out of it. You can also faith buy Mounties using Grandmaster's Chapel, and it's super cheap as well. And since you're faith buying with Grandmaster's Chapel, you throw in Theocracy, you have cheap Mounties to faith buy, and they don't scale. They stay the same amount. Like, they don't, you know how nationalists or naturalists and rock bands get more expensive as time goes on in the game as eras increase. They stay the same when you're in Grandmaster's Chapel, so you can get a lot of Mounties out very, very fast. However, outside of that, even with the buffs to like camps and mines and farms and stuff like that in Tundra, Canada is still not that great. They still feel kind of meh. I'm currently playing them on stream right now, and I played them offline a little bit with the new patch just to see how they felt, and it's just like, kind of feels exactly how they did before. They feel kind of meh. They feel like they're okay. They don't feel amazing. They don't feel bonkers unstoppable like Teddy is. Like, you know, once you get a good start with Teddy, feels like no one can stop you. Even if you get like a perfect wonder start as Wilfred, it still doesn't feel like you're gonna go bonkers in culture and in tourism. So he still is good. It's just you know. So that's where I'm ranking. Even after the patch, I feel like C tier is pretty decent for our man Wilfred. All right, and China here with our boy Qin Shi Huang. With him, we're gonna move him into B tier. Initially, I had him into C tier, but I realized that I was a moron, and B tier is where he belongs, especially with the buff that he's gotten in with the latest April patch. The ability to getting the Eureka's and inspirations when completing a world wonder fits really well and synergizes with his inherent ability of getting the extra science and culture from inspirations and Eureka's as well. So I feel like that works really well on top of him getting builder charges and then being able to use his builder charges to complete wonders. Everything works really well for him. The synergy is there between everything, right? Between everything that his abilities use, his the extra buffs that he's gotten from the new patch, right? So being able to complete 15% of the wonder, it's just so good. He does have a little lagging in versatility. You can't really do a lot of, I guess you could do a little bit of a faith stuff with him, but considering that the majority of the faith-based wonders that you want to get when you're playing a religion game are outside of the classical era, kind of slows you down there a little bit. But with that, I think B is a pretty good area to plug him in. He's a good civ. Everything just works really well for his kit, and it doesn't make him insanely overpowered or doesn't put him down here at all. So I think B tier is good for China. All right, and with Kublai Khan China, I actually have them one lower than regular China, which is in the C tier. The main reason is just the difference between their unique abilities as a leader are a little bit drastic. The economic policy slot doesn't really make up for the fact that you can just like 2-turn pyramids, right? As Qin Shi Huang instead of Kublai Khan. Everything else is practically the same. It's just the main differences between those two are just, I think, a little bit more drastic, right? The thing is, you also get a random Eureka and inspiration on establishing a first trading post, which is, it's nice, and you can kind of like tie that into the building wonders as well. I think just the builder ability for Qin Shi Huang compared to Kublai Khan is just way better. So I think C tier is nice for him. He's like just below B tier. If I had this spread out between C plus, C, and C minus, he'd be at the C plus part, and he would just be right at B. So I think C is perfectly applicable for Kublai Khan. Poundmaker of the Cree. Oh man, I love Poundmaker. A lot of people know that Poundmaker is one of my favorite civs to play in the entire game. And here's why. He's up in A tier. I think this is probably going to be another controversial one because I think some people think Poundmaker is absolutely garbage. And I could see why. He's a jack of all trades, And with that, that means that he's not particularly amazing at one specific thing, but he's good at everything. Even when it comes to faith and stuff like that, because of how strong his early game is, right? Because you can get mecha waps with pottery, because you get a trading post or trade route immediately with pottery, because you get his unique recon unit, which is stronger than the regular recon unit. It does have a little bit of higher production cost, but the 20 combat strength versus 10 combat strength is pretty key, right? Especially when you're trying to go against the new updated barbs that have been updated. So I feel like Poundmaker is insanely good at that. Poundmaker is very versatile, and that's why I think I rate versatility very high. He is very versatile in meaning that he could basically do anything you want him to because of how good of an early game advantage you can get with him. You can get a really early trade route going, literally at pottery if you find a nearby city state, nearby AI. So if you want to go domination, you can get that trade route going immediately. You got the diplomatic visibility from him because of your trade routes, or because of getting alliances. You also, with the trade route ability, getting the 3 tiles going through that trader is really strong too, especially, if you are forward settling someone in domination and trying to steal their land. So I feel like Poundmaker is one of those civs that, because of how good his early game is, he sets you up to kind of do whatever you want to do. I mean, like most civs that are don't have inherent faith-based abilities, that's where his probably his weakest link is. But even then, you can still get a good faith economy going with him by starting off the early game strong. So I think A tier is really good for Poundmaker. I think that's exactly where he needs to be. He because he can do everything well, it doesn't make him overpowered because it's not like super insane. But it's because he can do everything well, it sets him up right in here. So A tier for me for Poundmaker. Oh, Cleopatra. Oh, Egypt. Cleopatra waifu. With Cleo, I have her up in the B tier. I feel like, there's going to be a lot of civs that are in the B tier, and Cleo is definitely one of them. She is another civ that is just good at the early game. Her unique archers are very strong. The fact that her biases give her a lot of food, standing where you're going to be settling. Her leader bonus gives you can start to get a lot of gold very fast, as well as additional food to make your empires grow really fast. She's just a decent civ. The problem is, once again, this is one of those ones where she doesn't excel in any specific victory condition. Maybe more culture than anything. Right? She gets the extra production on districts and things along those lines. So there is a little bit of a drawback there, is that the fact that you have a really strong foundation leads you to do a lot of things, but maybe not as strong as like Poundmaker, for example, like we just talked about. Regardless, she's still a good civ. You can get a really good regular economy going. You can go the culture route, by spamming sphinxes. You can get a lot of wonders really early because of her unique ability with wonders. So I think Cleo is one of the more. I get a question a lot, like, who do you think they're most underrated civs? I think Cleo is very underrated, and I think Poundmaker is very underrated. And for both of those reasons is that they just have a good solid base foundation of a game that you can play and turn into a strong game if you wanted to. So B tier for Cleo, very similar to Poundmaker, just a little bit lower on the list. Victoria of England. We'll do Victoria first, then we'll go on to Eleanor. Victoria is up in a B tier. Very similar to a lot of the civs that I've talked about, in that she has her focus is pretty strong once she gets into it. If you run like an archipelago map, and you have the resources that you need to play as Vicky, getting coal up for battleships, getting your iron or niter for frigates and stuff like that. She's very strong. However, she also runs the issue where that she kind of is pigeonholed into that very specific win condition, aka naval domination. You can do things that give you extra production, and you can do things like that. Because of that, you can do like science victories and things along those lines. But I feel like she's geared to just naval dom, which is great when she does it, right? But I feel like when you are kind of pigeonholed into one victory condition, you can't really do anything. I mean, that's the self-explanatory, right? So I think with B tier is pretty good for her. The synergy between what you want to do with her and what you can do with her works really well, right? If you want to go naval dom, you have everything set up for you. But outside of that, it is a little hard to like. I guess science would be her next best one for her. So I think B tier, maybe a low B tier, like a B minus would be good for her. But yeah, B tier is where I'm putting Vicky. And with right off at the top of that with Eleanor, Eleanor of England, I'm putting her in D tier. It's just like you have the same, I mean, more or less the same abilities as Vicky, right? But it's just there's no synergy there. It doesn't make any sense. I feel like England is one of the English Eleanor is one of the civs in the game that I really wish they would have buffed in the patch, or at least like literally reworked her. There's just no synergy between her court of love, as well as her agenda, or as not her agenda, but like, there's no synergy between her court of love ability, which is the loyalty ability, right, and the great works ability, and Royal Navy Dockyards. It doesn't make any sense. There's almost like no reason to play Eleanor of England if you want to do Eleanor's unique ability of loyalty flipping, which is what she's good at. Play French Eleanor. If you want to do Navy Dom, play Victoria. Eleanor of England just falls in this weird spot where none of her abilities work together really well, and it just puts her really low. There's like almost no point in playing her if you just rather play her or play French Eleanor, right? So I think D tier is pretty good for her. Maybe I almost put her lower, but I think because Royal Navy Dockyards are really good, I put her a little bit higher up. So D tier is where Eleanor is. All right, Ethiopia. We are on to Menelik here. Menelik, I have him in an A tier. I think Menelik is really, really strong, especially if you do get a start where you can get on a hill and you are running secret societies and you have Void Singers. Even without Void Singers, he's still strong. But throwing Void Singers in there, we are assuming that we are running secret societies with all the AI. Void Singers just like centered. It literally was made for Ethiopia. The fact that he gets culture and science based off of his faith output that are with the cities that are founded on hills all synergizes so well with Void Singers. You can't not play Void Singers with him. I feel like if you play that with anyone else, if you play any play owls or play ley lines with him or anything like that, there's no point. Just play Void Singers every game. But because of that, because of how well everything synergizes with him, even taking out Void Singers, he's still super strong, right? Because you really don't even have to play you just have to play faith based. You still get a lot of science, you still get a lot of culture, even just by building faith, and that's what makes him so strong, because then you can still go anywhere off of that. Maybe not as much as Peter, but you could still, if you wanted to go science, you can. If you want to go culture, you can. Especially the fact that his rock-hewn churches give you tourism as well. So it's one of those things where he has a lot of utility in his kit that kind of gives him the ability to do almost anything. I would say, maybe domination is probably, even domination, right? You can just go Grandmaster's Chapel with him. You do get the extra combat strength for fighting on hills too. So if you play like a New Age map or a Highlands map, he's very strong on that. So A tier is where I have Menelik. I think he's really strong. He's obviously not like insanely overpowered, but I think he is just a really strong civ in general. All right, and with Catherine, we have, right now it's just mostly Black Queen Catherine. With her, I have her up in the B tier. I feel like with Catherine, she is once again, another just strong civ. She's not insanely overpowered or anything like that. She has a lot of really good abilities that work well together. The fact that you get the extra diplomatic visibility with a spy. And they all start with a free promotion, allows you to do things, like steal great works really easily. Being able to siphon funds really easily is really nice. Obviously, she has the main ability of Grand Tour, right? Gives you the extra production. I think it's 20%, right? Yeah, 20% production towards Winders, Medieval, Renaissance, and Industrial. And it also increases the tourism as well. So her tourism game is really, really strong. There are some downfalls to everything else, right? She doesn't really have a high domination output, even with the Guard Imperial. Guard Imperials are nice, but her domination is not that great. But her culture is so strong that it bumps her up to, I think, a B tier, which I am very happy with, and I think that's very applicable for Catherine. All right, and with Magnificent Catherine, I actually have her the same reason with Kublai Khan. I have her down below in C tier. I do think that her ability, what is it called? Her ability to do the project, which gives her tourism, it can be really useful and very strong, but I think it's so situational, and so it's just one of those things that's insanely situational that unless you're like doing it like they did in CPL, in Civilization Players League, where they did it like turn 15 or whatever, and won the game at turn 30, then there's really no extra use for it. I find myself, I mean, I still do it. You are able to get really good, a lot of tourists really early on in the game, but I don't think it impacts you that much in order to give you like an edge over Black Queen Catherine. I think with her, I think I prefer the spy aspect with Black Queen over Magnificence, which is probably why I have her down here. This synergizes a little bit more than her court project, just because of how situational this court project is. So down into C tier for Magnificence Catherine, and that puts us to Eleanor of France. Eleanor of France, she is actually up into the B tier. I actually really enjoy playing Eleanor. I mean, most people know her for the peaceful domination, right? Loyalty flipping cities that are close to you. I think I actually like Eleanor of France more than I like regular France. I think the extra abilities I think the way that her abilities work with her great works and loyalty flipping synergizes way more than Catherine does. But I don't think it's insanely broken to the point or it's so good that she needs to be up into A tier. I think her early game is very weak. Her early game is not that great. But that is made up for with the synergy of what you're trying to do with her kit. So B tier is where I have Eleanor of France, way better than Eleanor of England. So that's where I have her, and I think that works out well for her. All right, now with the Gaul, with Ambiorix, the other mustache man, I have him also up into A tier. I was very, very close into S tier, like very, very close. He is another one of those civs that can do basically anything you want with him. His early game is insanely strong. His early game is super, super strong. In fact, I have him like literally, if we were to break this down into A+, A, and A-, he's at A+. He's like teetering S- and A+. His Geisite are one of the strongest units in the entire game. The fact that you receive culture equal to production cost after you train a unit, like Garen, makes you want to do domination or at least build units. The fact that you gain culture from mines and also get tourism from them is insane, and his oppidums are just super cheap. He's just one of those civs that can do anything. He could even do faith if you wanted to, just because of how he's so insanely versatile. And I think that's why I rate him so high, right? Because he's not super dependent on anything. Like, yeah, you can get some hills, so if you're playing like a flatlands map, he's maybe not as strong as someone else like Cleopatra would be. But he's not like super dependent on strategic resources. He's not super dependent on where you are on the map. And the fact that all of his abilities tie so well together that he does what you want him to do. So yeah, Ambiorix, I think up in A tier. I put him just below S tier. I don't think he is. I don't think he's as deserving as S tier as the people that I will be putting up there. So, yeah. A tier for Ambiorix for the Gaul. Oh, Tamar, Georgia. Even with the buffs that you've been given, I still have you down in D tier. I don't know, what can I say? Her versatility, like there's just so much wrong with Georgia. Like I said, even with the buffs that you get with Tamar, it's just still not worth playing. I mean, she like even if you put her buffs from 50% up to 100% with the combat victory or gaining faith from the combat strength of a defeated unit, the only time it's ever going to help you is early game. Like, sure, maybe you can get the first pantheon in the game, so you can get, religious settlements. But like outside of that, it's just not great. Like, I don't know what's up with Georgia. I feel like I know that, like, talking with Carl, the idea behind a lot of the patches was, if you're unfamiliar with BBG, BBG, Better Balanced Game, is a mod that is used in the Civilization Players League, which is CPL. I mentioned that a lot. And it completely reworks a lot of the stuff in the game. Like governors are changed, a lot of the unique abilities of civs are changed to make it a little bit more balanced, which is why they use it in CPL. And Tamar is completely different. And I know with talking with Carl, who's a designer at Civ, that they wanted to kind of go halfway in between what they wanted to see in the game and how BBG balanced it. And I think Tamar is one of the ones that they completely should have gone 100% with BBG. Like, excuse me. It's just one of those things that Tamar is just, I don't know. She just doesn't feel great to play. Your walls are cool. Yeah, really early walls, right? So you can be super defensible. You gain extra faith from there. The Kevsers suck still. I know you don't get any movement. Like, you get extra ability. Okay, they don't suck. But it's just, I don't know. She just feels bad. She just feels bad to play, even with her buffs. So maybe they should have just completely reworked her. I don't know. Tamar is still one of those ones I was excited to see. I was like, oh, they're going to buff her. It's awesome. And she still ended up being not a great civ. So down in the D tier, I think putting her in the D tier is, I think there's a common theme that you'll find in the D tier is that they don't really have an identity on what they want to do, or if they do, it doesn't really work very well, and that's where Tamar falls in D tier. Oh, Frederick Barbarossa. With Germany, we have our first S tier. I used to keep Germany at only an A tier, but after playing him a bunch and then watching, if you go watch Peppermint Butler, who I've talked about earlier, play Germany, Germany's insane. They can literally do anything. Just like the Hansa, the Hansa commercial hub adjacency bonus is just bonkers. Getting your Hansas out, getting everything going is just absolutely insane. His early game is fine. His late game is perfect. The synergy between all of his abilities and what you want to do with them are amazing. Especially now that they added his start bias towards rivers, which he didn't have a bias before, just makes him completely S tier. You can literally do anything with him. I would say, just like I said before, every production civ, faith is his weakest one, but even then you can still do faith very easily with him. So, but I think even taking that aside, considering how strong he is with everything else that you want to do, like the amount of production you can put out, the amount of science that you can put out, culture, everything with him, I think that far outweighs even his limited scope of faith. So Germany is an S tier. I feel like they're just so insanely good. They're one of the best civs in the game, obviously because it's an S tier, but they're so far ahead of a lot of the other people that do similar type of things that it's a little unfair to even put them down into A tier. So Germany, definitely top 3 in the game, but for sure S tier. Gran Colombia, Simon Bolivar. With Simon, I figured you guys can expect this, but I have him up in A tier. I love Simon Bolivar. I love Gran Colombia. One of my favorite civs to play. When they came out, I was like, all right, well, this civ is literally the type of civ that I want to play. They did get nerfed a little bit, but even with that small nerf, they're so insanely strong. The extra movement speed with their commandants, the fact that you get the great generals, the llaneros are really strong. Everything about them, even the haciendas. The haciendas do come a little bit later than I'd like, but which is probably one of the weaker sides of them is the hacienda. But the fact that everything else works so well together, right? You have your llaneros, you have your comandantes, and the extra movement speed because of that, as well as the combat strength. Oh man, they were broken before with the fact that everything stacked so well, but I think with the nerf was rightfully needed. They needed to be nerfed just a tiny bit, and I think they're in a really good spot right now. I think A tier is perfect for them, just because of how well everything synergizes together. They're not really dependent on a lot of things. Both their in-game strengths are very strong, all the way through into the entire game. Your narrows are appropriately placed in the game. I think they're just one of those civs that just feels really good to play, no matter what start you have. So A tier for Simon. I feel that's very, very fair for Gran Colombia. Pericles, Greece. Ah, man, Greece. Well, with Greece here, this was almost another S tier. We have him in A tier though. He's just below S tier. Like just one. If you did it by the spreadsheet, 1 point below S tier. Pericles is very, very strong. His really early theater squares, really cheap theater squares. The fact that you get theater squares on the fact that your theater squares have really high adjacency bonuses. They're just so good. They're so good. I really value early culture. I think I've talked about it a little bit earlier, but early culture is way more important than science in the game. Science is nice, but culture slingshots you. And so having that early culture as Greece, on top of his ability to get 5% extra culture, so tying in like 5% extra culture with Kilwakasawani, and then you get the 5% card with the card that comes later in the game. That just like the amount of culture you're going to be getting is absolutely bonkers. And then, you know, pairing that with his ability to get great people, as well as you know, putting in Oracle in his city, like Pericles is almost unstoppable. The reason why he's a little bit lower than before, just because of how he is a little bit dependent on hills. You have to have hills in order to place Acropoli. I think his early game strength is great. I think the dependency just brings him down just a little bit, just because you have to place them on hills, right? Same thing with Korea. You know, the dependency on hills is really important for Pericles. So other than that, if you could place Acropoli anywhere, then he would be S tier 100%. But he's a little bit dependent on spawns, which is why it brings him just down to A tier, just below S tier. So that's what we got for our boy Pericles. Now with Gorgo, Gorgo is also actually going up into A tier as well. I used to have Gorgo pretty low. But I think Gorgo, especially with the new patch, is really strong. I think the new ability giving her the combat strength versus military, with having military policies in your government, is insanely strong, especially considering you're already going to get an additional wildcard slot in there. So playing around her, using your using your military to gain culture, synergizes super well with having extra policy slots. So, you know, obviously if you're playing as her and you're going domination, you're going to be taking, you know, like oligarchy and autocracy and things along those lines, just to maximize your potential with damage output. So I think she's really strong. I think the amount of culture that you can get with her is really good, right? Because you still get the Acropoli as Gorgo. You still get the like I said, that culture equal to 50% of its combat strength. And the reason why I value this highly than I do Tamar's faith is because you can't do a whole lot with that faith early on, outside of a pantheon. That culture that you getting 50% of the culture, even if it's only a little bit of culture, is going to boost, especially in the early game, it's going to boost your civics, allowing you to snowball a little bit faster. If you're getting that same amount with faith, you get a pantheon, and then what else are you going to do with it, right? You can't really buy missionaries with it because it's not enough to get missionaries. And so especially if you're going to war and you're constantly killing units, you're going to be getting a lot of extra culture. So it's not like enough to be insane. It's not enough to be, you know, super useful compared to, you know, for example, like the city-state Ayutthaya, or is it Ayutthaya? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Giving you that amount of culture, it's really not like comparable, but compared to Tamar, it's way more useful. But we have Tamar up in A tier. We have Gorgo up in A tier. I feel like she is pretty nice now with the new buffs towards her. So yeah, A tier. Matthias, my boy Matthias, Hungary. With Hungary, I used to not like them so much. I think I didn't really understand how to play Hungary for a while, which is really strange because they're 100% my playstyle. But now, especially, you know, with Himiko in the game, Hungary is A tier. Even then, I feel like they're super good. I feel like all of the synergy between what they want to do works out very well, right? Getting the city-state bonuses, levying the city-states, getting the extra combat strength, the upgrades, getting all the envoys with them. Gaining black army units when you have castles. It just I think it just is very, very strong. Even the 50% production across rivers is super strong, which means, you know, if you're settling on rivers, putting things across rivers, you're going to get your districts out very fast, especially if you can throw it like an encampment across the river, you know, things along those lines. I think what is it called? It's called Pearl of the Danube. Yeah. I think Pearl of the Danube it's really nice. It's a little bit less as important, I think, at least for me, for my playstyle, than being able to the Raven King. Because that city-state bonus is just insane. Like being able to upgrade like musketmen with 5 niter and what is it, like 20 gold or 35 gold or something stupid is bonkers. So throwing Himiko in there and being able to levy for free is just makes him broken. Himiko Matthias is actually broken, but taking out Himiko, he's still very strong. I mean, as you can tell, I love domination, hence why we have like some of these up here, but even then I think he's really strong regardless. So Matthias, A tier. I love the dude, love the Raven King. Pachacuti. Oh man, Pachacuti I think is used to be pretty low on my list. I think I had him as a C tier before. Maybe he was low B tier, but he's up in A tier now. I'm on the camp that terrace farms are really, really good. And now that they're even better, with his start bias towards mountains. I mean, if you guys watched I'll link it up here, my national park only tourism with the Incan Empire, preserves only tourism. Sorry, I did build preserves. You'll realize how strong terrace farms are, especially when you have them on rivers next to mountains, and we had such a good start there. So the fact that they give like extra food and production, that they've been buffed, so strong. I'm not a huge fan of their ranged unit, the one that replaces the skirmisher. It feels off. I'm not a huge fan of scouting units after scouts, except for maybe spec ops. They're whatever. I mean, obviously, like, barbarian skirmishers are a pain to deal with, but I just don't really care about them that much. So for me, it's the terrace farms. The terrace farms are super strong. Any early game thing, or like anything that you get an early game, is very, very strong for me. Mecha Wops are insanely strong. Very early culture, like with a Gaul or Pericles. Insane faith generation early game, like Menelik. And same thing with Pachacuti here with the terrace farms. Being able to build terrace farms fairly early is really insane. They're just really strong. I think that like stands out far and above what I used to think. I think that the terrace farms, despite being buffed, stands out a lot more than I thought, which brings them all the way up to A tier, because this is another civ where you can kind of go any direction you want to. So Incan Empire, A tier for me. Okay, Gandhi, one of the two Indian leaders here. Gandhi is another D tier leader. It's just bad, man. It's just bad. You know what? We're gonna knock both of them out. We're gonna knock both of them out right now. Chandragupta and Gandhi, they're both going down to D tier. They just feel bad to play. Both of them. I like playing Chandragupta a little bit more, just because of the being able to declare a war of territorial expansion really soon. So, forward settling versus people is very useful with him. I just like for Gandhi himself first. We'll talk about Gandhi, then we'll talk about Chandragupta. Gandhi, the 5 faith for each Met civilization. It just I don't care about that. It's so weak. That's such a weak bonus. Like, who cares? Right? It doesn't feel like anything that's good to play with. Even the stepwells, I'm not a huge fan of the stepwells. I think they're okay. They are unlocked really early with irrigation, but I feel like I'd rather have a Mecha Wop than a stepwell. I do like the Varu. I will say the Varu are very strong, which is why I rank Chandragupta just a little bit higher than Gandhi. They're both still D tier, but like Chandragupta would be like D plus and Gandhi would be D or D minus. I just think that the Varu are strong, and the being able to declare territorial expansion war with Chandragupta compared to Gandhi Gandhi's abilities are just, I think they're vastly superior. So with that being said, both of them are D tier. They just feel they should have gotten buffs and they didn't, and that was a little disappointing. So yeah, D tier for both Indian leaders. Gatarja, Indonesia. I used to not like Gatarja. I used to think she was super weak, but for me, I have Gatarja in B tier. Don't ask me why. Sometimes I just am an idiot. But I think Kampungs are really strong. I think they're super versatile tile improvement, especially the fact that you can spam them on coastal tiles. I mean, obviously they have to be built by adjacent to a sea resource, right? But the fact that they also give you tourism too, which is really nice. It means you can do culture with her. You could also do naval dom with her very easily, considering you can buy naval units with faith, which is probably one of the big perks for her, being able to go Grandmaster's Chapel. Or no, you don't even have to go Grandmaster's Chapel. You can just buy your naval units with faith, right? So I think Gatarja is really strong on archipelago maps or even small continent maps, just because you can buy, battleships, frigates, things like that with faith. You can pre-build frigates with Jongs and then turn them into you can pre-build Jongs and with quadriremes. So I think she's super strong. I think her faith generation is really nice too. She just is a good civ. You get the bonus, the adjacency bonuses with her throw in Nan Madal, and you've really got a stew going. But yeah, I think Gatarja is really good. Just a really good civ. So B tier, because she's just a solid civ. All right, and now with Hojo, Hojo is another one of those civs that just barely missed S tier. I think Hojo is one of the most versatile civs in the entire game. I think he is, just because of the way that his abilities work with being able to district very, very well, especially against the coast, being able to do kind of anything that you want. Sorry, not against the coast. It doesn't really matter. He gets the combat strength against the coast. Being able to kind of just do whatever you want with your districts, getting the major adjacency bonuses instead of the 0.5 adjacency bonus. It allows you to do anything. I think the only problem with him, I don't know. I still think when it comes to S tier, S tier is a step above everyone else, right? And so I think the difference between him and Germany is that how quick Germany comes online and how powerful he becomes, right? So when you get your 10 cities out, turn 100, turn 110, you have 10 cities out, and you have all of them getting like 70 plus production per turn, and you have like Ruhr Valley in there, you throw Colosseum in there, you have like a TOA city in there somewhere, and you're just turn into this insane production empire. And you can kind of do the same thing with Hojo, just maybe a tiny bit smaller. So I still think Hojo is really, really strong. I think the electronics factory is an amazing building. Samurai, very strong units. So especially with the recent patch, they have been buffed a little bit. So Samurai, super strong. A tier. I think Hojo is just a solid A tier civ. Very strong. Should always be contested if you're playing like multiplayer. You can never go wrong with Hojo in your game. Oh, Kamai. Oh, our boy Jay over here. I used to think, rightfully so, Jay was probably one of the worst civs in the game. I hated his relic minigame. I thought it was, you needed to choose something with him, and I think going relics was a little too situational. So I like that they kind of scrapped the relic minigame and went all in on his faith and growth, and that puts him up into A tier. I used to, like I said, I used to have him down in D tier. He's almost S tier. He's almost S tier for me. Just a couple points shy. I think that he's a little too dependent on some things that allow him to, like, he's really a little too dependent on getting your synergy between aqueducts and holy sites. So you want to settle on rivers with him. So if you don't get a river settle, it's not the end of the world, but it's definitely not the best. I think that with his river goddess pantheon and going, the adjacency, getting your good adjacencies with holy sites, and throwing like work ethic in there is super strong with him. Allows you to you can do science with him now, especially going tall. It encourages you to go tall, so you'll go audience chamber instead of ancestral hall. You can go ancestral hall, if you want, but audience chamber is really strong on him. And getting your amenities super high population cities, crazy production, crazy faith gen, makes him a really, really solid civ now. So Khmer being up into A tier, I feel is very fair, especially considering they were down here in D tier before. Previously, I had no F tier before. I thought everything that was the worst were in D tier, but having J up here in A tier, almost S tier, I think is really good. So yeah, J, really good civ now. And with the Congo, right after that, speaking of D tier, we're going to throw them down into another D tier here. I still, even with the changes, I still don't think they're that great. Like I said, I value early game a lot, and I value versatility, and his early game is just like hot garbage, man. Especially considering you're waiting for someone to spread their religion to you. So if you don't have a civ that doesn't have a religion and isn't spreading it nearby, it just feels so bad. It feels so bad. You just turn into a vanilla civ without extra bonuses. So it just, yeah, it sucks. It sucks. Additionally, too, the thing that I don't like about the Congo, which I understand that's the whole point of like playing them, is that sometimes you want to keep the beliefs in your city, but you can't. Sometimes, you're going to have your cities being changed back and forth. Obviously you could go like you could get that apostle right to spread the religion that you want, but it just I don't know. To me, playing the Congo feels bad. You can get relics and artifacts giving you, all the extra yields and things along those lines. I don't know. It just feels bad. The Mabanza feels pretty god awful. It just like neighborhoods. I feel like neighborhoods to this day, even though they changed them, I still don't build neighborhoods unless I'm getting biosphere. Neighborhoods are probably one of the least useful things in the entire game. I wish they did something with them. I don't build neighborhoods unless I have to. Even in games where I am playing like Khmer and I'm going super tall, I don't care enough about neighborhoods to get them to take up a very precious tile on my land. So the fact that you have a unique neighborhood, it just makes it even worse. So yep, Congo down in D tier. Think they're a pretty not great civ. All right, and with Korea, with our lady Sondok here, she is in A tier. I think people are going to be surprised that I don't have her in S tier. And I think that's just because of how the fact that she's not as versatile as some other people can be with science. For example, Germany, even though maybe his science output won't be as high initially for most of the game as Korea, the fact that he can kind of do a little bit more than Korea makes him a little bit better. Her early game is not super strong either. I know aside from getting the Sowons, it's just and I guess Hawatches are really strong, but that does replace the field cannon, so that comes into the Renaissance era. But Sowons being replaced, they're a little bit dependent on hills. Having hills is very important as Korea because you can't place Sowons anywhere else. I do like the buff that they gave to her. I know a lot of people were crying about that buff being like, oh, you gave an S tier civ another buff, and I don't think she's S tier. So I think that justifies that little buff that she got. And I also don't think it was that much of a buff anyways, because it wasn't, I think it was more of a quality of life change. Because having, say, for example, you had, we'll just use these as examples. Like say these two were Sowons and this was a mine, you're only getting like one adjacency bonus affected by it instead of two. So having that little extra bonus just makes more sense, as it makes the game a little bit more fun. It doesn't make her crazy overpowered, and it just it's like I said, it's just more of a quality of life change than anything. So Sondok, I think she's a really strong civ. Throwing Pingala in her capital, giving the extra culture, throwing an oracle in there, getting Oxford, just turns into her into a powerhouse. But obviously that's a late game powerhouse. If you take away a little bit of the early game strength and the dependencies, that bumps her down to an A tier instead of an S tier. So that is where I have Korea. And then jumping right off of Korea, we go to Alex here. Alex is probably one of my favorite civs to play. He is. I do throw him in the B tier, and that's just because of his lack of versatility, as well as being a little bit too dependent on resources. But even then, he's still super strong. Hypaspists, I think, are probably, for me, are top 5 units in the game. Hypaspis, Great General. You don't even need a battering ram. Hypaspis, Great General, and you're going to go through ancient walls, and then once you get a siege tower, even with medieval walls, you don't care. You're going to be doing so much damage just with Hypaspis. You don't even need men-at-arms yet. So Alex was one of my favorite Dom civs before they added the men-at-arms, just because of how strong they were even against crossbows. So I think I like Hypaspis more than Heteroi. I know a lot of people tend to go Heteroi, but I find for me that you're generally going to have iron more than you're going to have horses when you're playing as Alex. And I think Hypaspis are easier to get than getting Heteroi. So obviously you could do something where you could do like a late classical era rush and get the Basilikoi Paids and then go Heteroi, but I generally find timings are a little bit better with getting Hypaspis out. You can rush a little bit faster. You can get like 2 to 3 archers, 4 or 5 Hypaspis with a Great General and hit Oligarchy at the same time, and then you can just go to war immediately. So I find that's why Alexander is super strong. Also, being able to take a city with a wonder and healing your entire army means you don't have to do Moksha shenanigans and throw Moksha into cities. So Alex is in B tier. He's only not in A tier just because of how his lack of versatility. You can't really do a lot of other things aside from domination with him. But because his domination is so strong, he's up into B tier. All right, Montezuma of the Mali. Montezuma, I think with him, for me, he falls into a C tier. He is one of those very situational civs, and that's why he is in C tier, where if you don't get the start that you want with him, he's probably one of the worst civs to get. But if you do get a god start, if you do get a really good start, he becomes like overpowered. So I think putting him in the C tier is very fair for him, just because of how dependent and how god awful his early game is. If you make it past the classical era and you're in a desert situation, then the Mali are going to be fantastic, right? Throw in like Nagaz Garmu, gold buy every single military unit and go to war with everyone. Do some crazy faith stuff, win a faith game, go to space with faith, go to space with gold. You can kind of do anything, but considering how dependent he is on the early game and how dependent he is on his spawn, throws him down into C tier, and I think that's pretty fair. I don't think he's an awful civ. I just think without, the same thing can be argued. You can kind of argue the same thing with Peter almost, but with Montezuma, it's even worse just because of how god awful his early game is, just because of his lack of production. So Montezuma straight into C tier, very fair for me at least. Which brings us to Coupe. Where are we throwing Coupe today? Coupe is also going to be another C tier civ. I think Coupe is another situational civ for me, at least. I think he is very dependent, a lot more so than people would think, just because of the fact that you can't chop features. You can chop bonus resources, but you can't chop features. I think sucks with him. I mean, that's part of his appeal, or that's part of how you play him, right? But I do think, he can be strong. There's just a lot of limiting factors, I think, with him. I think that, with even though you start in the ocean and you start with the extra, all the extra tech and stuff like that, and extra bonuses because you start in the ocean, there is a possibility where the first continent you find is god awful and you spend 10 turns trying to find a city, and even on deity, even with the extra bonuses you get, you're still far behind. So there, obviously, if you're playing on deity, you're probably rolling to find a good start anyways. So I think some of the things, I like Toas. I'm not a huge fan of the Murray. It's okay. It's not god awful, but it's just not I don't think it's super important. I like the Toas though. I do like the Toas. I like the fact that they have a build charge, and so but I also don't like their unique fort, or what is it called? The PA. I think it's called a PA. I just don't think it's good. I don't like building fort improvements. I think they're a waste of time and builder charges. And so that brings him to C tier. Situationally, he can be good. Obviously, if you're the AI, the AI never plays him correctly, so he would be F tier with the AI. But I mean, I think for a human player, I think C tier is applicable for him. He has moments where he shines, but the majority of the time he's just an average civ. All right, Mapuche, Lataro. I actually really enjoy playing Lataro, and with that, we're putting him into B tier. I think he's just another solid civ. The extra combat strength you get when you're fighting versus civs that are in Golden Ages, also Heroic Ages. I always forget that. It's super nice, especially with the new addition that they added with this patch, where you get that combat strength towards free cities, which synergizes super well with his loyalty flipping and domination. I think that's just a really cool mechanic, being able to loyalty flip while killing units. So I think, with him, it's just a really fun civ to play, going domination with him. I don't really care that much that the Chemamul is. I just think it's one of those. I think it's one of those tile improvements that is a little weak. Even though it gives you flight, I just don't think it's great. It just, I don't know. It's not one of my favorites. I also don't think it really synergizes well with what you want to do with him. I do love Maulin Raiders though. Maulin Raiders are insane. +5 combat strength within 4 tiles of friendly territory. They synergize really well with his, taking over cities. So you take over cities, and now your Maulin Raiders have extra combat strength. You take over another city, now they have extra combat strength again. And throwing that in with the Great General, right? You gain extra production or extra combat strength as well. The cities that have governors with giving you extra culture production and combat experience, good, really good mechanic. Overall, I think Mapuche is a really good civ, just a really solid civ, and that's why I'm throwing him into B tier. Oh, Lady Six Sky. Lady Six Sky of the Maya is also another B tier civ. I think the new patch bumped her up. I had her down in C tier before, but the new patch bumped her up with the fact that you get a builder now, with tiles that are in, or cities that are within 6 tiles of your capital, which is if there's an optimal arrangement that you can have of Mayan cities. I'll throw it up here. That is a that you plan out your cities within 6 tiles, and you get I think it's like 13 cities that you can have within your capital. Obviously, you're not going to have it every time, but if you can get 13 cities to get a free builder in, that's fantastic, right? And then you can, put in serfdom, and so about probably like half of those will get the serfdom bonus. And if you have pyramids, you can literally get 12 turn builders in a bunch of your cities just because of that. When you also throwing an ancestral hall on top of it too. So I think that new buff is super nice. I think that is something that was definitely needed for the Mayans, just because once she was released and you realized how to play Lady Six Sky, builders are very, very important. You realize how important builders are towards her, especially in the early game. I know that there was a lot of theory crafting, like, oh, maybe we go Liang with her to get that extra builder charge, or maybe we go builder first with her just because of how dependent she is on plantations with her observatories. And that's another reason why she's down in B tier instead of A tier, is because you are 100% reliant on plantations for your observatories. Otherwise, they just kind of suck. So playing tall with her is really good. Even though I said you could stack it with Ancestral Hall, I prefer going Audience Chamber. Playing tall with civs that are kind of meant to go tall is way more advantageous. Especially with the changes to amenities a couple patches ago. Throw in a Colosseum, get a lot of, since you are getting plantations, you're going to get a lot of amenities anyways, and you've got a really, really strong Mayan science civ. So B tier, let's keep Lady Six Sky in there, and I think that's where she belongs. And then going on towards Mongolia, we'll go with regular Genghis Khan first before we hop into Kublai Khan. This is another B tier. Like I said, I think most of these civs are going to be in B tier. At least I hope so. Mongolia is a lot of fun, at least for me. Their early game is insanely strong. And I think that their synergy with how everything works well together, or how all their abilities work together, make them very strong. I think for me personally, they are stronger in multiplayer than they are in single player, just because of, if you're playing multiplayer and you're trying to be allies with people in the beginning, or at least friendly with them, you're going to be sending trade routes to them so you can get your diplomatic visibility up, and then eventually you'll get a spy in there. And when you get a spy in there and you hit your musketman timing, which is even better now with man-at-arms, you're going to get like 96 combat strength musketman. It is so strong. Keshigs are really nice too, don't get me wrong. I like Keshigs. I think Keshig rushes are really good, but getting the extra combat strength for having a trading post and getting the diplomatic visibility combat strength is just bonkers. So like getting like plus 18 combat strength is a possibility, and so that's why I really enjoy Mongolia. I think the things that they fall short on, right, are versatility. You can't really do a lot with them. I mean, there's literally a Steam achievement for playing culture as Mongolia, so that should say a lot about them. But outside of that, I mean, I still think they're very strong. I think they have a lot of use with their calves getting extra combat strength, the combat strength synergy between diplomatic visibility and trading posts. I think they're really good. And with that, we'll throw it right into Kublai Khan Mongolia. And for me, Kublai Khan Mongolia is just a step below regular Mongolia, which I think is fair considering I ranked the Chinese Kublai Khan the same as well. I'm not a huge fan of the extra the random technology or the random inspiration and eureka from trading posts. I don't think it's a great mechanic that synergizes. I mean, it's supposed to, right? Because you're supposed to be getting trade routes with Mongolia. But if you're playing Mongolia, you want to go to war, and you're not going to be able to trade a lot, minus like the first 2 civs you go to war with. So you're going to be trading with city states, and I mean, obviously, you can still get up because you're going to be getting trading posts, but it doesn't feel as strong. It doesn't feel as strong as just like the cav bonuses that you get from Mongolia. So both Kublai Khans, I think, are staying down in C tier. I think that's fine. Not every single New Frontier Pass civ or leader has to be insanely strong, right? I mean, look at Rough Rider. So Kublai Khan down into both regular Mongolia B tier, Kublai Khan down into the C tier. And with that, we're on the Netherlands. Wilhelmina. I think there's a couple civs that I've said this about. Even with the new buff, I'm not. It's not like that's helping her insanely. It does help her a little bit, but Wilhelmina's up into B tier as well. I used to consider her one of the weaker civs, but after playing her a little bit, watching other people play her, actually reading her abilities, especially with the new patch, I think she I think she goes up into the B tier pretty nicely. I think she's just a really solid even civ. The extra trade routes, or the extra culture you get from the trade routes that was added, it used to be +1, now it's +2. That can snowball really hard. Say you spawn near a couple city states and a couple civs, and they're being super friendly. You can get some like +6, +8 culture really fast, really early, and that +8 culture really early is going to get you Code of Laws super fast. Obviously, you're not going to get Code of Laws at that point, but you can get foreign trade really fast. You can hop into the rest of the civics really, really fast, turning them down from like 12 turns to 6 turns really easily. So that extra culture, I think, goes a long way. I'm not a huge fan of the polders. I think they're okay. They can be really good, but I think obviously that's a spawn dependency thing. I do like their I do like their ship. The extra strength when you're attacking districts, and I think is really good. I think it's very strong specifically when you're attacking districts, right? So you use them as like attacking city centers. But overall, I mean, I think Wilhelmina is a good civ, just straight solid. So I threw her into the B tier. And then from Wilhelmina to Harold. Oh, Harold, man, I mean, it's a little bit better than he used to be, but Harold is still Harold's in C tier for me. He's not quite D tier. He just because of how decent his Viking longships are, and the extra amount of production you get towards naval melee units. So I think Viking longships and the fact that his early game is so insanely strong bumps him up into C tier. But outside of that, I mean, Berserkers did get a little bit of a buff with the new patch towards the combat strength with the combat strength changes. So they got a little bit of a buff. And I mean, I don't know. Harold still doesn't feel great to play. If you're doing Naval Dom with him, yeah, that's great. Naval Dom is great with him. But outside of that, I think it just like stave churches are awkward. Stave churches are really, really awkward. I feel like they come in way too late. They do replace the temple, but if you're doing Naval Dom, I feel like you don't want to build holy sites, especially as Herald. So I felt like this whole aspect of Herald should just be removed, and something else like maybe a unique, like go like the Dido route, right, and get a unique harbor, or get like unique like tile improvements that make a little bit more sense towards his kit. I understand like thematically it works right with Herald, but in the game it doesn't at all. So that's also what's dropping him down is his synergy and how the rest of his abilities work together. But I think because this early game is so strong, that bumps him up to C instead of D. So that is where we have Herald. And with that, we have Nubia, Amanator. Nubia has dropped down from a pretty high ranking down to a D tier for me. Man, I don't know why they nerfed the 50% to 30%. I don't know, man. It just felt so bad. Like now Nubia just like feels really, really bad. Building Pitati archers. I mean, sure you get like negative. I mean, sure you can build it, 30% strength, but I just don't know. I don't know why they did that. I think that was a really, really bad nerf. Maybe it was just so you can play versus the AI and they don't spam the archers, but you don't really need to worry about them that much. I don't find them as strong as like Holche are. I don't know. It feels really bad playing Nubia. Obviously you can get the extra productions towards districts, and it increases to plus 40%, right? If you have a Nubian pyramid inside your city center or in your city limits, but I don't like Nubia. I think they're pretty weak civ compared to everyone else, especially with the nerf that they got. Just doesn't feel good. So Nubia D tier, dropped down below from where they used to be. That 50% to 30% was I think that was a dumb change. So that's where we're at. And from Nubia straight onto the Ottoman Empire of Suleiman. I love playing Suleiman. I just got done playing a domination game with him. And Suleiman, I have him into a solid B tier. He was almost A tier, but for me, he's in a high B tier, just because of how strong his everything is with him. I feel like his versatility is lacking. He is 100% geared towards domination. Having the unique governor Ibrahim is fantastic. I feel like that is also kind of a shortcoming too at the same time, because if you want to go Ibrahim, you have to go domination. That's the whole point of going domination with him. I mean, sure, you can get like the Diplo stuff with his later promotions, but the whole point is to get that extra attack damage to defensible districts. So that means you want to go siege units, which you can get really fast and really easily with Suleiman, because of his 50% production towards them. The fact that they also get extra combat strength. So you get like 15 combat strength extra if you have Ibrahim nearby the city that you're attacking because of his unique ability as well. Throw on a great general on top of there, plus 20 combat strength. Pretty damn strong. The extra amenity too, and plus the fact that you get loyalty and amenities from taking city, like with the cities, there's no reason not to go to war with him. So if you take out his versatility, he would become an S tier or A tier civ, but I think because he does lack a little bit of versatility, he is a little spawn dependent depending on where Niter is, although he did get buffed. So I think I think B tier is still pretty fair for him, just because he is kind of a one-trick pony, but a little bit less of a one-trick pony than say Harold is, or even like yeah, just a little bit of a one-trick, or like Byzantium. So yeah, B tier, Soleiman. Okay, Persia, Cyrus. You know, Persia used to be really high on my tier list. I used to think Persia was almost S tier, but I think he's actually dropped down to B tier now with the new patch. I think B tier works for him. I don't one, the new patch, but two, the nerf goddess, the nerf to earth goddess, nerfing Paradisas to only give 1 appeal instead of 2, additionally nerfing Earth Goddess to only give 1 faith instead of 2, brings him down from almost S tier to, I think, down to a B tier. He's a little less versatile than Pericles. You can go domination with him very easily, but I think he's a little less versatile and a little bit more dependent, spawn dependent than Pericles is. Yeah, getting the Earth Goddess nerf on top of Paradisa nerf, if you take that into account with what you want to do with this entire kit, that brings him down a little bit, because you would spam Paradisas like you would, Alcazars, right? And if you guys, I did have a tile improvement only game with Cyrus, where it took a while, and I ended up having to actually get rock bands. Tile improvement only, yeah. But I spammed, alternated Alcazars and Alcazar's Colossal Heads and Paradisas. If I had the Earth Goddess nerf, if it wasn't nerfed before, that would have been insanely strong. But if I didn't have if I played on the new Paradisa patch, my appeal would not be so high. Obviously, I got Eiffel Tower, but when you used to run Earth Goddess with everyone, including Cyrus, and you got Paradisas, your entire empire was just green when you went to the appeal tile. So that's a pretty big nerf to him, which means you kind of go from being a jack of all trades to more of a domination focused civ. Maybe he was less of a jack of all trades than domination focused, but that definitely brings him down to B tier. I don't think he's as strong as he was because of that. So yeah, Cyrus, B tier. And with Portugal, I think people are going to be surprised that I'm throwing him in B tier as well. I think with Portugal, this is another instance of dependencies are very important with him. Obviously, his late game can be insanely strong. His early game is insanely strong too, but the fact that he's so dependent on an archipelago or a naval map makes him really that brings him down just to B tier. I think if you could say his trade routes, you were allowed to trade on land too, then he would be S tier. But the fact that they have to be with a city that has a harbor or a naval trade route brings him down to B tier. Because if you're playing a Pangaea map or Seven Seas, something along those lines, and you have 0 trade routes, that just takes away all of his abilities. There's no point in playing him. You might as well just play Spain or something, right? So I feel, and also the fact that you can't place what are they called? You can't place the tile improvement with nows. I don't remember what the Fetorias. That's right, Fetorias. You can't place the Fetorias on a Pangaea map, so that means that you're not going to get the extra bonuses. He is very map dependent. When you do get him on an archipelago or a naval, small continents, fractal, whatever, he is very broken. I plan on doing an OCC, which is a one city challenge game with him. I've seen a lot of people do the OCCs with him and win sub 200 games, so that'll be a lot of fun. But like I said, very spawn dependent. If you don't get an if you're not playing him on a archipelago or a naval map, then there's basically no point in playing him at all. So yeah, B tier for me for Portugal. Trajan. With Trajan, I always forget that he exists. I always forget that Rome exists. That's probably because he's also another B tier civ. Trajan's strong. Don't get me wrong, he is a strong civ. I think he is just one of those civs. He is the civ that I recommend to everybody if they are just getting into civ. They're like, who should I play? How should I learn how to play the game? Play Rome. You get the monument in the game if you start in the ancient era. Everything works really well for him. You get the roads between your first couple cities, right? You get a trading post as well. So you have all of these, I like to call them training wheels that you get with Rome that allow you to to play the game and learn how to play the game very well. With all of the training wheels, though, you get really strong. You can be really strong. Like legions are very powerful. Legion rushes are very, very viable. The bath is cool. Like the bath is a unique tile improvement. It's a cheaper aqueduct. So building baths are actually, like, this is a good example of a district that is useful versus one that is not. Baths, very useful. I forget what the Congo neighborhood is called. Not useful at all. Baths are good for city. You know, like they give you, especially if you're playing Trajan and you're going to go like space, or even if you're not, if you're going domination or culture, getting a industrial zone is very useful. And getting a bath, a really cheap bath, allows you to do the industrial zone, aqueduct adjacency bonus shenanigan stuff. So Trajan's very solid civ. Rome is really good. Legions are very strong. Everything works really well together with Trajan. All of his abilities. So I think that is why it puts him right into the B tier, because it doesn't make him too strong. It makes him very versatile and very good. So that's where I have Trajan at, right into the B tier with most of the other civs. And from Rome straight into Russia. This should be no surprise for people that know me. I've been playing, that I talk about all the time. Russia is straight up into S tier. Russia is another S tier civ, and he is, for me, even with the nerf, the best civ in the game, bar none. Even if you don't get a Tundra start, people were telling me play a game without Tundra, and you'll see why Freddy's better. And I still think even with that, Peter is way better. There's so many things that his entire kit synergizes well together. Everything about his kit makes him very good. Everything about his kit complements another part of his kit. There's just too much about Peter that makes him good. Lavras being very cheap, very fast, within a possible first tech in the game. Like, if you started next to a wonder, you boost astrology, or if you find a wonder really early, boost astrology. You get a Lavra by turn 15 or so. You get the first religion, and because of that, say you are playing. We're assuming that everyone has a beautiful start. We won't say a legendary start, but we'll say everyone has their biased start. Peter is by far the strongest because you get Dance of the Aurora. That means every single holy site that you're going to get is going to be at least +6, if not +7, 8, 9, 10. And by that, you get 40, +50 gold per turn off of your first 2 to 3 cities. Did I say gold per turn? Sorry, faith per turn. +40 to 50 faith per turn off of your first 2 to 3 cities. You can, all of these things that you get in the classical era allow you to get a golden age. Then you get a golden age monumentality, and because you have so much faith per turn, you can utilize your classical era monumentality very easily, which allows you to buy faith by settlers and faith by builders. So that means you're at classical era, you have your 3 cities up, and you have 20 to 30 faith per turn at this point. Now you can expand like crazy. Now you can go from 3 cities up to 10 cities by turn 60 or turn 70 or 80, and now you can get up to 15 cities by turn 100, getting your medieval era monumentality golden age again, because since everything works so well with Peter, you can chain golden ages so easily. Get improving your religion, getting an launching an inquisition, finalizing your religion. That's almost a full era's worth of era score. On top of that, you also, Cossacks are really strong as well. They do replace the cavalry, so they're a little bit later. Cossacks are really strong if you need them, but even then, taking all of this into consideration, being able to get 15 cities by turn 100 to 110 or so, you can do anything that you want with Peter. You can go science, you can faith by spaceports with Moksha, go work ethic, because you have 9 adjacency holy sites, so you throw work ethic in there, put in scripture as well as simultaneum, and now you have insane 20 plus production holy sites in every single city. You can go culture with him insanely easily because of all the great people generation, as well as you have the faith to get naturalists as well as rock bands, and you'll have 1,000 plus faith per turn near the end of the game when you are buying rock bands. You can go domination with him, Grandmaster's Chapel, buy all of your units. You can go Diplo with him. You can do anything you want with him, and that's why I believe that he's stronger than And you can go religion, obviously. Religion is the main one, right? That is why he's a step above Germany, just barely. If this was broken down into tiers inside S tier, Peter, even with his nerf, would be S+. Germany would be at S. And that's just because you can do whatever you want with Peter. So like in comparing the two, right, if you had Germany on his perfect start bias and Peter on his perfect start bias, Peter wins 10 times out of 10 just because of that. There are people who are going to argue with me about this, and I think this is one of the ones that I will probably hear out most people's arguments on these, but I think Peter is one of the ones that I am a firm believer that Peter is S tier. And even with the nerfs that he got recently, which weren't terrible nerfs, they were nerfs that made sense, right? Being not getting your great people until you get specific buildings. He is by far the best civ in the game, no matter what. Even if you take out the Tundra start, getting that much faith gen early on in the game in like a guaranteed religion is just actually broken. So Peter, best civ of the game. Fight me on it. Yeah, super good. S tier. Robert the Bruce, Scotland. Everyone knows that that Scotland's music in the game for me is an F tier, just because of how abrasive the bagpipes are in the game. But for me, Scotland, Scotty boy, he's in C tier. He is an average civ, I think. For me, with the changes of amenities, amenities are very important now compared to before. I know that people have gotten on me in my city-state tier list video because I talked about how amenities didn't matter. And to be fair, at that time when I made that video, I didn't care about amenities, and the negative effects or the positive effects that you got from amenities really didn't matter. And it was insanely hard to get your cities to be happy or ecstatic. So the amount of production and time you would put into getting your cities to that point could just be made up by getting other things instead. So, with the fact that amenities are better, I still think Scotland is around a C tier. He is very strong at science. He gets the great people points with his with his happy cities, as well as engineer points. He also gets the extra production for the liberation wars. So I think that's super strong. However, I think with Robert, his early game and his versatility is a little bit lacking. His early game is really weak. Because you don't get the extra great people. I mean, you can. There's a possibility if you start off a really strong start and you have a happy city immediately, getting your great people points, is really easy. But generally that's not going to happen. Additionally, I think outside of science and domination, he kind of falls pretty flat. I think for me, it does give you extra amenities, but I think golf courses, it makes sense, but the fact that it's unlocked by Reformed Church, I think, feels weird because you have to go down to the bottom tree of Reformed Church to grab golf courses, which I think they should I feel like golf courses should be unlocked by the civic that gives you entertainment complexes. I think that would make a little bit more sense for him. It's around the same era. That's a little bit before, actually. Maybe like medieval fairs or something like that. But I feel like going Reformed Church is a little weird. Regardless, Robert, I have him in a C tier. I think he hovers right around between a B and a C tier. I put him at like a C+, where he's almost B tier. So yeah, that's where we have him. And then jumping right into Scythia here. Scythia for me Scythia's in a weird spot. I do think she is a B tier civ, but for me, she's just in that weird spot of you have to go domination with her. She did get a little bit of a buff recently with the new patch. The Kurgans do actually apply tourism equal to the faith output and give you a little bit more faith and gold based off of adjacencies. I still think they're one of the worst tile improvements in the game, but at least they're not like an F tier tile improvement, right? Where you'd rather just like destroy them and build something else there. So you can do some tourism shenanigans with her, but I still think that is not as imperative as her Saka horse archers are. I think the melee strength increase to Saka horse archers makes them way more viable for especially Saka horse rushes. The melee strength, if you don't know what the melee strength of a ranged unit is, it's whenever a melee unit attacks a ranged unit has melee strength to defend itself. So now that it's gone from 10 to 20, I believe it's 20 now. Yes, it is 20. So going from 10 to 20 makes them actually not die every single turn that you have them near a fucking swordsman or something. So that buffs her up a little bit. I think she's one of the strongest early game civs in the game, just because of how strong soccer horse archers are and her bias towards starting with horses. Her versatility obviously is what brings her down a lot. The fact that she really is not versatile at all. So I think the balance between her lack of versatility and her early game strength and her military strength kind of evens it out and brings her right into a B tier, which I think is nice enough for Scythia. I used to think she was a little bit weaker, but with the buff to horse archers and Kurgans, it brings her up just a little bit here. So maybe like a B- would be applicable for her. But yeah, B tier for Scythia. All right, Philip. Spain, I'm putting him up into B tier now. It's funny because I used to have Philip as the worst civ to play in the game, but with the new patch, the new buffs that you've gone to Philip, he's no longer living in pain anymore. He is Spain. The S has been added back onto him. I mean, he's not S tier, but he's a good civ now. The new changes that they did with the trade routes, like I said before, the new frontier pass, or once you got the new frontier pass, there was no point in playing Philip, right? Play Portugal. He's got better trade routes. He does what Philip does with other continents better than he does. If you wanted to do Faith, Inquisition, Domination stuff, play Byzantium. He's way better at it. And he gets all of his bonuses earlier. But now Philip's good. Philip's like an actually good civ. His bias on starting on continent splits helps him a lot, which means you can get the extra bonus from trade routes on multiple continents, and also getting the extra production towards districts and on multiple continents as well. Like, encourages you to settle multiple continents now. Getting the extra builder, which stacks with Ancestral Hall, is really nice. So if you start on a continent split, you can get like half of your empire on the other continent and they get a free builder. So Philip is really good now. He was, like I said, he was down as the worst civ in the game, and now he's up. I think B tier is fair, just because he is a little spawn dependent. You do rely on the continent splits quite a bit, but everything else is great about him. He's a lot more versatile. He has really good early game and late game strength. Just a good civ now. So, Philip, my boy, like I said, you are no longer living in pain. You are back up to Spain, and it is good to see you here in B tier. Gilgabro. Oh, Gilgabro. Gilgabro is one of those civs where I really wish I could say is a good civ. I talked about in one of my videos before, the tips video, that Gilgamesh is one of the best friends to have on, or one of your best civs to have as an ally, because you can friend him immediately. Gilgabro is my only F tier this patch, with the latest patch. I understand what they were trying to do with I'll put him over here so you can see him in all of his shame. I understand what they were trying to do with the patch, with the combat strength based off of alliances, and I explained why I really dislike this. It does not synergize well with Gilgamesh. I think for me, I would rather have Gilgamesh as an ally than play him. And the reason being is because like I said, with those new, with the new bonuses that you get to alliances, nothing synergizes well with him. Nothing synergizes at all. You obviously, if you run Heroes and Legends, you get the extra bonus production. That's fine. If you're not playing in Heroes and Legends, it doesn't really matter, right? But, and I guess you also get you don't get the Warmonger points. But the whole point of playing Gilgamesh, especially with the new patch, right, is getting that extra combat strength with an ally, which stacks on top of a military alliance. However, because the whole point of playing Gilgamesh is going domination, and your war carts are so early, it doesn't make sense to get alliances. Because one, you're probably not going to have any friends. If you're playing Gilgamesh as intended, you're going to get war carts, which you get in the ancient era. You're going to go war cart rush. Everyone's going to hate you because you're doing that. You're going to kill people, which means you're not going to have any allies, which means you don't get you can't get the military alliance or any alliance at all, which means you don't get the combat strength, which means the new buff is moot. There's no point in the new buff that he got from this patch. So not only that, I will say that war carts are really strong, but they also suck at the same time. They replace heavy chariots. Yes, that's true. They do have a pretty high production cost. 55 production is a lot of production for that unit, and they fall off very, very hard versus the AI. They fall off really hard versus the AI, especially on deity. The only time you're really going to get a war cart rush in is if someone spawns like 5 tiles away from you, right? Even if you do a classical era rush, by the time you're doing a classical era rush, there's no point in getting war carts because you should just get swordsmen instead, and then run into men at arms. This is one of those instances where I think, and I'm very vocal about this, where I think this is probably the most disappointing change in the entire patch. Nothing synergizes well with Gilgamesh. There's no point in playing him. Just have him as your ally. I mean, you might have an ally or two if you do domination, but if you're, like I said, if you're playing him as his kit is made, you're not going to have any allies. You're going to, I mean, I guess like the warmonger points, right? Like the warmonger penalties are going to be, you don't get them from declaring war. That doesn't mean you don't get warmonger points from when you pillage, when you take cities, when you raise cities, things along those lines. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a really disappointing buff. I feel it doesn't even feel like a buff. It doesn't, the thing with the buff is it doesn't change what's fundamentally wrong with Gilgamesh in that his kit doesn't synergize well. Maybe they should have made war carts a little bit cheaper. I don't know, maybe 10 production cheaper. Maybe make them a little bit more impactful. Maybe moved war carts a little bit further and gave them more combat strength. I don't know. But Gilgamesh, this is probably, like I said, most disappointing buff in the game, or in the patch. I think they almost probably should have just reworked him because he is bad. He's a bad civ. So sorry, Gilgabro, you're a fantastic ally, but you're terrible to play with. All right, somehow I skipped over Dido here. I don't know how that happened. But with Dido in Phoenicia, I have Dido up in B tier. Dido is once again one of those civs that is a B tier civ. She's a strong civ. Everything works really well and synergizes really well with her. I think she's like the definition of a civ that is just good. The cities that have a Kothon, you can get the extra production towards settlers. Biremes are very, very strong. They are, really, really strong galley. Maybe not as strong as Viking longships, but they are still very strong. And the fact that Kothons are very cheap as well too, 27 production. They are a little bit later than, for example, a Lavra or a Hansa, or so a Lavra, but yeah, Dido. I think Dido's a good civ. I think placing her in the B tier is very applicable. I know some people might rate her a little bit higher, a little bit lower. I think this is a good example of her relying a little bit too much on a naval map. If you don't have coastal cities, then she kind of falls off pretty hard. But I think she makes up everywhere else with it. So yeah, B tier for Dido. All right, Jadwiga. I don't know how I skipped both Phoenicia and Poland. I must have just blazed right over the P's there. But yeah, with Jadwiga here with Poland, this is another one that I wish they would have buffed a little bit more. She's still in D tier even with the new buffs that she got. It is nice being able to use her ability, the culture bomb, with not just her religion but with the majority religion. So that is nice. I still think that everything else doesn't work really well with her. I will say I really like the Winged Hussar buff. The Winged Hussars were my favorite unit in Civilization 5. In Civ 6, they're still really good, but moving them up to a Cuirassier, really good. That makes them strong. It makes them impactful, and it makes them a unit that you want to use instead of where they were before. So. Yeah, I think, I mean, for me, I think Jadwiga still suffers from the lack of synergy with all of her abilities. You want to go Faith and you want to go Dom, but it's still not as strong as, say, for example, like Byzantium. Byzantium is a little bit better at it, even though he's more dependent on it. He's a little bit better at doing what she kind of wants to do. You obviously get extra bonuses from relics, but it's whatever. So yeah, still D tier. I think Jadwiga, even with the buffs that you got from her, they're still not great. So yeah, D tier for Jadwiga of Poland. And on to the last three here. Christina of Sweden. I don't know, man. The theming, the auto theming is really nice for Christina, but I still think she's a D tier civ. She lacks a lot of versatility with what you want to do with her. Her early game is like god awful. She is one of the worst, in my opinion, one of the worst early game civs. I feel like unless you want to go culture, which is what you want to do with her, it just doesn't. I don't know. Everything else feels pretty weak with her. The Carolian don't feel great. They replaced the pike and shot, which generally you're not building a lot of pike and shots. You'd rather go musketmen and man-at-arms and line infantry instead. Anti-cav in this game are still not great. I'd rather just go cavalry or melee units. No reason to go anti-cav. I mean, pike and shots are nice, but I don't know. Carolians don't feel good. The auto-theming is very nice. You can do some like relic shenanigan auto-theming with her and get really high culture and tourism. But outside of that, there's really no benefits for anything else for her aside from just like strictly tourism. So that puts her down into D tier just because of how like her versatility is a little bit lacking. And yeah, it just doesn't feel great with her. So I think D tier is pretty applicable for Christina. Maybe if they buffed a couple things on her, she'd be better, but I don't know. Never really liked Sweden anyways, but after like actually going through and ranking her, I could see why. All right, Vietnam. With Lady True, I almost had her into S tier, believe it or not. She is another A tier civ, very very close to being S tier, bordering along the lines with Pericles there, literally 1 point off. Vietnam is another insanely versatile civ. It is kind of crazy the amount of things that you can do with Vietnam. The extra bonuses that you get from the districts being on specific features is really nice. Obviously the caveat is that you can't place districts, have to be placed on features, but outside of that, everything else was really strong. Voi Chien are very very strong units. Her Thons, the unique encampment, is probably one of the best districts in the game, getting the extra culture for districts being around them. So you want to use them as use them as a little center hub for your districts around them. Just a really good and really well made civ. Everything about Vietnam works really well together. Everything synergizes together. Everything does, if no matter what victory condition you want to do, everything works together well to help that victory condition. The only thing that draws her back a little bit is her spawn dependency. If she wasn't so spawn dependent, she would probably be S tier, but I think because you rely on having all of those features, that it brings her down just a little bit, but not too much. So yeah, her in being A tier, it's a high A tier along with Pericles. I think if I were a little bit more lenient on my S tier, both Pericles and Vietnam would be S tier with them. But yeah, Vietnam's a really good civ. I'd highly recommend them to play, to anyone to play if they haven't played them, because I really like playing Lady True. Shaka, my boy. Oh, Shaka of the Zulu. Shaka is not getting the S tier treatment as he did in my music tier list, which you haven't watched. Go watch it. Which that will also be updated at some point too. But with here, Shaka is up into the A tier. I think everything with Shaka, everything Shaka does, he does well. Obviously, the one caveat with Shaka is his versatility. You just want to go domination with Shaka. You don't really want to do anything else. But because of how well he does domination, how great Akondas are, how good Impies are, Impies getting buffed with the new combat strength changes, being able to get corps and armies literally insanely fast, like changes it, like getting army impies or sorry, core impies and army impies super fast just puts you ahead above everybody else when it comes to domination. So since he does domination so well and all of his bonuses work together so well, that puts him into the A tier, I think, for me. Everything is very strong with him. All of his abilities work together really well. If he wasn't as versatile, I mean, if he had a little bit more versatility, he might be a little bit higher, maybe like an A+. I put him at an A- just because of he's a one-trick pony. So he's still good. He's still a really good civ. So I think putting Shaka into A tier is reasonable. All right, so there we go. There you have it. That is my Civilization 6 leader civ tier list. Let me know what you guys think about it. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you think that I'm an idiot for only having these two for S tiers? Do you think I'm an idiot for having Gilgamesh and F? Are you satisfied with my tier list? What would you guys change? And if you could change any of the ones that you deem really bad or really good, how would you change them? I'm pretty satisfied with this list. There are a couple ones that maybe could go up or down, you know, depending on personal opinion and on how people play. You know, I could see people thinking that Dido is A tier and, you know, Cleopatra is D tier. But I think it also comes down to a little bit of personal play style. But yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed this. I'd like to thank Peppermint Butler for creating the spreadsheet in the first place, giving a criteria and weighting on judging civs. If you'd like, I'll link his Discord as well as his stream here if you wanted to go look at that. Also, thanks everybody for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really like doing these tier lists. I like, you know, giving my thoughts and opinions on civs and what I think the civs are good. And giving based off of my experience in the game. And I like hearing your guys' feedback. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any comments about it, if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. Please leave your opinions. If you guys haven't, make sure you like and make sure you subscribe to the videos. Subscribing is one of the best ways to actually support the channel. So I appreciate it a lot. And I also stream every Wednesday through Saturday, 12 to 4 p.m. on twitch.tv/boesthius, where I am a partnered Twitch streamer where I stream Civilization 6 every week alongside some other games like Humankind and City Skylines and stuff like that. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.